They say some moments haunt you forever. Like shadows, they follow silently but never fade. It's been 2 years since that day. 2 years since everything changed. I used to believe I knew who I was, Sarah Mitchell, devoted wife, caring mother, suburban dream come true. But one summer day shattered that illusion completely. David and I had been married for 15 years. From the outside, we were perfect, the envy of our gated community in Newport Beach. Beautiful house, successful husband, 2 wonderful kids. I used to tell myself I was living the American dream. But dreams have a way of turning into nightmares. David was always working. Always at the office, always in meetings, always too busy. At first, I understood. He was building his career, providing for our family. I told myself it was worth the lonely dinners, the cold bed, the silence. But after 15 years, the excuses wore thin. I couldn't remember the last time he really looked at me. Really saw me. Not just as his wife, or Jason and Emma's mother, but as Sarah. The woman he once couldn't keep his hands off of. The woman who used to make him laugh. The woman who felt alive. That Memorial Day weekend started like any other. David was rushing out the door at 7 a.m., briefcase in hand. "Sorry, honey," he said, barely glancing my way. "Big client meeting. Can't make it to the beach today." I just nodded, throat tight. What else could I do? Emma was at her friend's house for a sleepover. It would just be Jason and me. Jason, my 16-year-old son, was already in the car. Tall, lean, with his father's dark hair but softer features. He had his earbuds in, lost in his own world. The drive to Newport Beach was quiet. I kept stealing glances at him, wondering when my little boy had grown so tall. The California sun was blazing that day. We found a quiet spot away from the crowds. Jason helped me spread out the towels, set up the umbrella. I watched him move, so much like his father at that age. But different too. Gentler somehow. More present. "It's nice to get out, isn't it?" I said, trying to break the silence. He just nodded, pushing his hair back. "Yeah, Mom. It's nice." I laid back on my towel, feeling the sun warm my skin. For a moment, I let myself relax. Let the weight of the past 15 years lift away. Then I remembered the sunscreen. "Jason, honey? Could you help me with my back?" He hesitated for a moment. Just a moment. But long enough for something to shift in the air between us. His hands were gentle at first. Uncertain. "You can press harder," I said. "It's okay." He did. His hands became firmer, more confident. I closed my eyes, focusing on the sensation. It had been so long since anyone had touched me. So long since I'd felt anything but numb. Then his hands moved lower. Slowly. Carefully. Down the curve of my back. I should have stopped him. Should have sat up. Should have said something. "Ains. Ted," I whispered, "it's okay." The words hung in the air between us. Poisonous. Dangerous. Beautiful. His hands lingered. Lower. Lower still. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. But I didn't move. Didn't stop him. Let myself feel wanted. Even if it was wrong. Even if it would destroy us both. That moment stretched into eternity. The sound of waves. The warmth of the sun. His hands on my skin. Everything changed that day. Everything. When we got home, I tried to act normal. Made dinner. Did laundry. Avoided Jason's eyes across the table. But I could feel his gaze. Heavy. Hungry. Different. David came home late, as usual. Barely noticed me. Barely noticed anything. But Jason noticed. Jason saw me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay there listening to David's steady breathing. Thinking about hands on my skin. About crossing lines. About need and loneliness and desire. The next few days were torture. Jason stayed close. Too close. Not touching, but always there. Always watching. I caught him looking when I cooked. When I cleaned. When I sat alone at night. And I let him look. Let myself be seen. The weekend came again. Another hot day. Another meeting for David. Another trip to the beach. Just Jason and me. This time, we both knew what would happen. Could feel it building between us. Like electricity before a storm. The beach showers were empty when we went to rinse off. I peeled off my outer clothes. Stood under the cool water. Take off your shorts, I said. You need to rinse properly. He did. And there we were. Naked. Alone. Water washing everything away. Except what we felt. What we wanted. Help me with my back, I whispered. His hands found my skin. Different this time. Sure. Knowing. I leaned back against him. Took his hands. Guided them. What happened next was a blur. Of need. Of touch. Of finally feeling alive. It was desperate. Passionate. Wrong in every way. But I couldn't stop. Didn't want to. Afterward, we stood there. Let the water wash over us. Neither speaking. Both knowing everything had changed. The drive home was silent. Heavy with what we'd done. With what we'd become. Mom, he finally said, voice low. What just happened? I gripped the steering wheel tighter. I don't know. But I did know. We both did. We'd crossed a line. Started something we couldn't stop. Didn't want to stop. In the driveway, before we went inside. He kissed me. Soft at first. Then harder. Desperate. And I kissed him back. Let myself fall. Let everything break. That was the beginning. The real beginning. Of our secret. Of our sin. Of our salvation. Days blurred together after that. Stolen moments in empty rooms. Lingering touches when no one was looking. Nights spent staring at the ceiling. Thinking of him. Always him. David noticed nothing. Too busy with work. Too distant to see. Emma was too young to you. Understand. The tension in the house. The way her brother looked at her mother. The way her mother came alive under his gaze. We were careful. So careful. But sometimes the need was too strong. Like that night in the kitchen. Dishes half done in the sink. His hands on my waist. His breath on my neck. "Mom," he whispered. "I can't stop thinking about you." I turned to face him. Knew I should push him away. Tell him to stop. End this madness. Instead, I said, "I can't stop either." And let myself drown in him again. Let myself feel everything. Every touch. Every kiss. Every forbidden moment. The guilt was there. Always there. Heavy in my chest. But it wasn't enough to stop us. Nothing was enough to stop us. We were falling. Together. Into something dark. Something beautiful. Something that would destroy us all. But in those moments, those precious, stolen moments, I didn't care. Couldn't care. Because for the first time in years, I felt alive. Really alive. And that feeling, that terrible, wonderful feeling, was worth any price. Even my soul. Summer days grew longer. Hotter. More dangerous. Jason and I developed our own language. Of looks. Of touches. Of moments stolen between heartbeats. David worked later and later. "Big merger coming," he'd say. Not seeing how I'd stopped caring. How I'd found something else. Something forbidden. Emma spent most days at summer camp. Or with friends. Leaving us alone. So alone. The house became our playground. Every room held memories now. Of hands. Of lips. Of whispered words. I knew it was wrong. God, how I knew. But knowledge didn't stop the wanting. Didn't stop the need. One afternoon, David called. "Working late again," he said. No apology this time. No pretense. I hung up and found Jason waiting. Always waiting. "He's not coming home?" he asked. But his eyes said something else. I shook my head. And he was there. Pressing me against the wall. Kissing me like he was drowning. And maybe he was. Maybe we both were. His hands found my skin. Under my shirt. Along my spine. Making me gasp. Making me feel. "We shouldn't," I whispered. But my body said yes. My heart said yes. Everything in me said yes. We barely made it to my bedroom. Our bedroom. Where David slept unknowing. The guilt should have stopped us. Should have made us pause. But it only made everything more intense. More desperate. More needed. Afterward, lying there. Tangled in sheets that weren't ours. Jason traced patterns on my skin. "I love you," he whispered. And I broke inside. Because I loved him too. Not just as my son. But as something else. Something more. Something terrible and beautiful. Days passed like dreams. We grew bolder. More reckless. Stealing kisses in the kitchen. Quick touches in hallways. Long looks across dinner tables. Emma started noticing. Not understanding. But seeing something. "You and Jason are weird," she said one day. My heart stopped. "What do you mean, sweetie?" She shrugged. "Just different." I changed the subject. But the fear remained, growing larger, more real. One weekend, David surprised us. Came home early. Found us in the living room. Jason and me. Sitting too close. Moving too quickly apart. But David didn't notice. Never noticed. Thought we could have family time, he said. The irony made me sick. We watched a movie together. Playing Happy Family. While underneath, everything burned. Jason sat across the room. But I felt every look. Every breath. Every unspoken word. That night, after everyone slept, he came to me. In the kitchen. Where I stood staring at nothing. His arms wrapped around me. Familiar now. Necessary. I hate pretending, he whispered. I hate sharing you. I turned in his arms. Saw the pain in his eyes. The need. The love. I know, I said. And kissed him. There in the dark. Where no one could see. Where we could be us. Just us. The summer grew hotter. More suffocating. Like our secret. Like our love. We started taking drives. Long drives. To nowhere. Just to be alone. Found hidden beaches. Empty parking lots. Places where no one knew us. Where we could pretend. One day, we drove north. Up the coast. Windows down. Music playing. Looking like mother and son. Being something else. We found a secluded cove. Hidden from the world. The sun was setting. Painting everything gold. Jason looked at me. Really looked at me. Sometimes I wish we could run away, he said. The words hung between us. Heavy with possibility. With danger. Where would we go? I asked. Playing along. Letting myself dream. Anywhere, he said. Everywhere. Just us. I let myself imagine it. A different life. A different world. Where this wouldn't be wrong. Where we could just be. But reality always returned. Like waves on the shore. Washing everything away. Leaving only truth. And truth was heavy. Was painful. Was destroying us both. But we couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. The need was too great. The connection too strong. Even as it killed us. Even as it saved us. Summer nights grew shorter. School loomed ahead. Change coming. Inevitable as sunrise. Jason grew quieter. More intense. His touches more desperate. His kisses harder. Like he was trying to hold on to something. Something slipping away. I felt it too. The ending coming. The real world returning. But not yet. Please, not yet. We had one more weekend. One more escape. One more chance to pretend. We told David we were visiting colleges. He barely looked up from his laptop. Have fun, he said. Not knowing. Never knowing. We drove south this time. Found a small beach town. Checked into a motel. Using cash. Being careful. Being scared. Being free. The room was small. Basic. Perfect. We didn't leave for 2 days. Ordered pizza. Watched. Bad TV. Made love. Pretended this was our life. Our reality. But Sunday came. Always came. Time to return. Time to pretend. Time to be mother and son again. The drive home was quiet. Heavy with endings. With beginnings. With everything between. I don't want to go back, Jason said. His voice breaking. My heart breaking. I know, I whispered. I know. But we did go back. Had to go back. To our house. Our family. Our lies. David was waiting. Emma was waiting. Reality was waiting. And we stepped back into our roles. Mother. Son. Family. But underneath, everything had changed. Everything was different. Everything was burning. And we were burning with it. Together. Always together. In our beautiful, terrible, perfect hell. School started in September. Everything changed. Had to change. Jason in his senior year. Me, trying to be just his mother again. But his eyes followed me. Everywhere. In the morning rush. At dinner. Late at night. David started coming home earlier. Missing my family, he said. Too late. Far too late. The tension grew unbearable. Like a string pulled too tight. Ready to snap. We found new ways to meet. After his track practice. Before my yoga class. Quick moments. Stolen touches. Never enough. One afternoon, Emma got sick at school. I had to pick her up. Found Jason waiting by my car. His eyes dark with need. Not now, I whispered. But he followed me home anyway. Emma fell asleep on the couch. And Jason, my beautiful, dangerous Jason, pulled me into the laundry room. Pressed me against the dryer. Kissed me until I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't remember why we shouldn't. The washing machine hummed. Covering our sounds. Our secrets. Our sin. But the guilt grew stronger. Started eating at me. At us. I saw it in his eyes too. The weight of what we were doing. What we'd become. One night, David tried to touch me. For the first time in months. I flinched away. Couldn't bear it. What's wrong? He asked. Finally noticing. Finally seeing. Nothing, I lied. Everything. Jason heard us arguing. Came to my room later. When David was gone. I hate him touching you, he said. Voice raw. Hands possessive on my skin. I hate sharing you. I should have stopped him. Should have ended it. But his touch was like fire. And I was so cold. So empty without him. The holidays approached. Family time. Together time. Pure torture. Relatives visiting. Questions asked. Jason's grown so handsome. Such a mama's boy. If they only knew. Christmas Eve. Everyone gathered. Presents. Carols. Pretense. Jason sat across the room, looking at me. Always looking. I felt his gaze like touches. Like kisses. Like promises. Later, in the kitchen. Washing dishes. He came up behind me. "Meet me tonight," he whispered. "Please." I nodded. Couldn't speak. Couldn't refuse. At midnight. When the house was quiet. We met in the garage. Cold and dark. But his hands were warm. His lips warmer. "I miss you," he said. "So much." I knew what he meant. Missed the summer. The freedom. The pretending. January brought college acceptance letters. UCLA. Berkeley. Stanford. Each one a knife in my heart. "I'm not going," he said one day. In my car. Parked behind the mall. "I can't leave you." My heart broke. Again. "You have to," I whispered. "You have to go." He kissed me then. Hard. Desperate. Like he could change reality. Change everything. But he couldn't. Neither could I. The end was coming. We both felt it. Both fought it. Both knew it was inevitable. One night Emma found us. In the kitchen. Not doing anything. Just standing too close. Looking too long. "Why are you guys acting so weird?" she asked. Innocent. Unknowing. The fear was paralyzing. "Just talking about college," Jason said. Smooth. Practiced. But Emma's eyes narrowed. Seeing something. Not understanding. But seeing. That night, I couldn't sleep. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. This had to end. Had to stop. Before we destroyed everything. Everyone. I told Jason the next day. In my car again. Our sanctuary. Our prison. "We can't," I said. "Not anymore." He didn't speak. Just looked at me. Eyes full of pain. Full of love. Full of everything we couldn't have. "I know," he finally said. But he kissed me anyway. One last time. One last touch. One last moment. Spring came. Jason chose Stanford. 300 miles away. Far enough to heal. Too far to breathe. David was proud. Emma was sad. I was dying inside. Graduation day. Cap and gown. Pictures and smiles. Pretending everything was normal. Everything was fine. Jason hugged me on stage. Held on too long. Whispered words only I could hear. "I'll always love you." Summer again. Different now. Heavy with endings. With goodbyes. We didn't touch anymore. Didn't meet in secret. Just looked. Remembered. Regretted. The day he left for college. Hot August morning. Car packed. Family gathered. "Take care of yourself," I said. Mother words. While my heart screamed other things. He hugged me. Brief. Proper. But his eyes said everything. Everything we couldn't say. Wouldn't say. Shouldn't say. I watched him drive away, taking part of me with him, leaving me hollow, empty, changed forever. David put his arm around me. Our boy's growing up, he said. Not knowing he'd grown up too fast. Grown into something terrible. Something beautiful. Something that would haunt us forever. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking of beaches, of stolen moments, of hands and lips and whispered words, of love that should never have been, but was, is, will always be. Sometimes I get letters from him. Normal letters. About classes. About life. But between the lines, I read other things. Other words. Other truths. And late. At night. When the house is quiet. When David sleeps beside me. I remember. Everything. Every touch. Every kiss. Every moment. And I know. Some sins are worth committing. Some loves worth the pain. Some secrets worth keeping. Forever. End.